Do you remember your first Nokia phone? That satisfying click when you flipped it open, the tiny green monster snake game keeping you up, that unbreakable Nokia 3310 that survived drops, baths, probably more than your current phone even survives a week. At one time, Nokia was the phone. Global phone market share over 40%. Everyone wanted a Nokia. Phones built like tanks. But fast forward 10 years, and most of the former kingmakers are now the forgotten. What happened? How did Nokia go from everyone has one to who even makes Nokias these days? Today on Money Route, we'll unravel the rise, the fall, and, spoiler, some comeback attempts. And the business lessons all of this teaches. Stick to the end, because some of the decisions, mistakes, misreads were subtle but heartbreaking, and they can teach you more than you think. To understand the fall, you need to understand the peak. Nokia actually started in 1865 as a paper mill in Finland. Over time, it diversified: rubber, cables, electronics, and by the late 20th century, it had really doubled down on telecommunications and mobile phones. In the 1990s and early 2000s, Nokia didn't just participate, it dominated. Models like the Nokia 3210, 3310, and later the feature-rich N series and E series flagged its strength. Durable, reliable, long battery life, excellent hardware engineering. Phones for all segments, from low cost to premium. By 2007, Nokia's Symbian OS, for its smartphones, advanced feature phones, held over 60% of the global smartphone OS market. Nokia's reputation was unshakable. In places with no cell phone shops, people still knew Nokia. In many developing countries, Nokia was the default. So at its height, hardware, global reach, brand strength, huge R&D, many phones, many segments, and they were making good money. But even at the peak, the wind was changing. The shifts were there. Nokia paid attention, but more slowly than the speed of change demanded. In 2007, Apple launched the iPhone. Touchscreen. Apps a radically different user interface and UX mindset. Suddenly, mobile phones weren't just for calls, texts, maybe music and camera. They were personal computers, entertainment devices, lifestyle products. Nokia's roots were more in hardware, durable phones, feature phones. That paradigm shift required software, ecosystems, fast iteration. Around the same time Android was emerging, and OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, saw an OS they could license, customize, and deploy quickly. Android's model contrasted with Nokia's model. Meanwhile, Nokia's internal R&D and product decision structure was getting unwieldy. Multiple OS efforts, slow product cycles, bureaucratic delays. There was internal conflict over which software direction to take. Stick with Symbian and improve it. Invest in new OS like MeGo, or adopt something else, Android. But decisions were slow, messy. Also, competitors started raising expectations. Powerful apps, sleek UI, frequent updates, better multi-touch, better integration. Some of that Nokia had or attempted, but often too late or partially. There were signs. The Nokia 5800 Express Music was a mainstream touchscreen attempt, but it was built atop older frameworks, Symbian S60, and suffered from design issues. Here are the big mistakes, strategic decisions that, one by one, eroded Nokia's dominance. Many of them could have been course-corrected, but by the time they added up, the momentum was gone. 1. Over-reliance on Symbian, too long. Symbian was once great. Power-efficient, familiar, broad compatibility. But as touch-screen UIs, app ecosystems, fluid animations, better multitasking became central, Symbian lagged. Nokia tried patching, updating, opening code, etc. But the architecture was not built for the kind of modern UX expectations Apple and Android were delivering. 2. Being slow to accept new OS models, just ecosystems. Instead of going Android early, Nokia stuck with Symbian, then worked on MeGo, and finally shifted to a partnership with Microsoft and Windows Phone in 2011. That delay cost them years. By the time the Windows Phone devices came to market, iOS and Android had such a lead in apps, developer support, user mindshare, that users and carriers often saw WP as niche. 3. Poor or inconsistent leadership / bureaucracy / internal conflicts. Senior managers fought over strategy, multiple product lines, and multiple OSES created duplication and confusion. The inertia of a large organization, unwillingness to risk cannibalizing existing products, fear of moving away from what was once hugely successful, all weighed Nokia down. 4. Misreading the importance of software ecosystems over just hardware. Nokia kept thinking its hardware strength, durability, battery life, build, scale would carry it. But increasingly, what mattered to consumers was apps, user experience, update cadence. Nokia's App Store efforts, OVI, etc., were late, not rich enough. Developers gravitated toward iOS and Android. 5. Underestimating new competitors and changing market dynamics. Samsung's strategy of using Android and releasing many models across price points, Apple's premium approach, all of that changed what users expected. Also, low-cost Android phones from China began eating into Nokia's markets, especially in Asia, Africa, India. Nokia's cost structures, pricing, and product design sometimes could not compete as aggressively. 6. The Microsoft Bet / Windows Phone deal. In 2011, Nokia announced that it would partner exclusively with Microsoft to use Windows Phone as its primary smartphone OS. The idea was to leapfrog the software gap, but Windows Phone struggled to attract enough developer support, app variety, and consumer attention. Also, the inertia and momentum were against Nokia then. It was a high-stakes, high-risk shift, and arguably it was too late. 7. Delay in touchscreens / UI quality issues. Nokia was late to embrace modern touch UI in a way that was polished and competitive. Its early touch phones were often less smooth, sluggish, or constrained by hardware / software mismatches. Users comparing iPhone or high-end Android devices noticed. Also, some flagship Nokia models suffered from leaks, defects, or disappointing aspects, e.g. Nokia N97 had problems. 8. Weak performance in key markets, especially the US. Nokia never had a very strong presence in the US compared to Europe or Asia. The US market had different carrier relationships, subsidy systems, consumer expectations. Carriers were powerful gatekeepers. Nokia's approach was more direct / consumer or through other channels, which gave room for Apple and Android OEMs to dominate. Putting those mistakes together with external pressure, Nokia's decline was more a collapse by accumulation than a single disaster. Key timeline points. In 2007, iPhone launches. Nokia still strong, but the signs are there. 2008 to 2009, Symbian's market share begins dropping noticeably. Android enters. Nokia tries touch phones like 5800. Mixed reviews. 2010, financial pressures, falling margins, competition heating up. Nokia's Symbian 3 is released, but already seen as insufficiently modern. Meanwhile, Android devices are improving rapidly. 2011, Stephen Elop becomes CEO. Nokia announces the Microsoft partnership. This is often seen as a cliff edge moment. For many, this was either Nokia's last chance or last big bet. 2012 to 2013, Nokia's phone division loses money. Market share plunges. Microsoft eventually acquires Nokia's devices and services business in 2014. The original Nokia phone business, as it was known, effectively stops. By the end of it, Nokia went from over 40 to 50% market share to single digits smartphones, with the cost of brand erosion, shrinking profits, and massive layoffs. This isn't just nostalgia. Nokia's story is full of lessons for any tech business or any business trying to ride waves of change. Don't rest on hardware strength alone. Software, UX, ecosystem matter more than ever. Move early. When your market is shifting, delay is very costly. Structure and leadership matter. Internal culture, bureaucracy, conflicting priorities can kill speed and clarity. Brand is not forever. Even giants can fall if they don't stay relevant. Trust, relevance, customer perception can shift fast. Embrace disruption, even if it could cannibalize your current success. Better to disrupt yourself than have someone else do it. Partnerships/bets are risky. They might help, but they have to be the right bets at the right time. And sometimes they should be hedged. But Nokia didn't completely disappear. After the fall, there were attempts to rebound, rebrand, reshape. Some succeeded more than others. Let's review. Microsoft acquisition, 2014. Microsoft bought Nokia's devices and services business. But Windows Phone never really challenged iOS/Android in a broad way. Over time, Microsoft pulled back from phone hardware. That attempt didn't restore Nokia to prior dominance. HMD Global, since around 2016, a separate company licensed the Nokia brand to produce feature phones and smartphones. The idea was to leverage nostalgia, good design, trusted brand, while using Android as the OS. Some devices were well received, particularly in developing markets where reliability, price, and simplicity are more important. But HMD faces difficulties re-entering big markets, e.g. the US, and competing with the scale, marketing, and aggressive innovation of other Android OEMs. Recent reports say HMD is scaling back its US operations. Infrastructure pivot. Nokia has moved a lot into telecoms infrastructure, network equipment, 5G, etc. This is more stable, less consumer flashy, but a solid backbone of modern connectivity. There's still a name in telecom gear. So Nokia's not just gone, they've shifted their center of gravity away from phones to the networks behind phones. Recent challenges, even in infrastructure, competition, e.g. Ericsson, Huawei, and macroeconomic headwinds, currency, tariffs, weak demand, are real. Nokia has made profit guidance cuts, workforce reductions, cost-cutting to stay lean. So there is comeback and adaptation, but none of it has yet restored the old status. Maybe the goal isn't to be #1 phone company again, but to survive and thrive in a different shape. It's interesting to think, what if Nokia had made different choices? Some possibilities. If Nokia had embraced Android early alongside or instead of Symbian, could it have preserved its brand strength and hardware excellence while benefiting from the exploding app ecosystem? What if they had unified around a modern OS sooner, MeeGo or something new, invested in developer tools aggressively, and shifted UI/UX expectations faster? What if they had more courage to disrupt their own business lines instead of sticking with what worked before? Nokia's story is tragic, yes, but also full of teaching moments. From being unbeatable to becoming humbled, from hardware dominance to software lag, from ubiquity to niche, it shows how success can mask risk, how trust, reputation, and scale are powerful, but only if matched by adaptability, timely decision-making, and understanding what users really want. Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think was the single worst decision Nokia made? Was it sticking with Symbian? Or was it the Microsoft deal? Maybe poor leadership? Drop it in the comments. Also, do you remember your first Nokia phone? Let's compare. And if you like this kind of deep dive, tech, business, nostalgia, please like, subscribe, hit the bell, and share. More stories like this coming. Thank you for watching. This is Money Route. See you in the next one.